What is up, Tube users, and welcome to another edition of Fantastically Fun Games for $15. Today, we are talking about a fantastic game, Papers, Please. This game is made by the same person who did Return of the Obra Dinn, which is my favorite game of all time, so it's no shocker that this game is just as, if not more, brilliant. And this game just celebrated its 10-year anniversary, and right now on Steam it is only $2, which is an absolute steal and a must-have for anyone who enjoys games. So what is Papers, Please exactly? Well, to put it simply, you just basically play as a passport agent. The game takes place in the 80s after a war-torn Astorska just ended its 6-year war with the neighboring Kolechia and reclaimed its rightful half of the border that you are currently stationed at. So it's basically your job to look at everyone's passports, entry permits, whatever documents they have, and make sure that they are allowed into the country. It starts out pretty slow, but as stuff progresses in the game, I won't try and spoil anything, it gets increasingly more difficult with more rules and stuff that you have to follow and keep track of. And while it may not seem like it has the thrill of a first-person shooter or something like that, there is definitely nothing more nerve-wracking than trying to figure out if someone's approved or denied into the country and then hearing that dreaded ticking sound of a citation coming your way. It harkens me back to my school days of just taking tests and just thinking that I had all the right answers, double checking everything, but then the test comes back and you realize that you circled one of the wrong answers. And there's just so much moral dilemma in this game that just makes it that much more intriguing. There's just so many different families and different characters in this game that you come across that need to get into the country, and you find something wrong with their passport or something, and it's a moral dilemma to let them in and be a nice person and get the citation, or deny them and make sure you get your credits for the week. Because there is a small part of the game that circles around you having to keep your family fed, keep the heat intact, and make sure you have medicine in case one of your family members becomes sick. So you do have to keep in mind that even if you want to approve someone that shouldn't be approved into the country or something like that, that you also have to worry about your own family in the game. And that's what makes this game so intriguing and so fun to play. Even the countless amount of times that I've played it and gone through the entire story, I'll keep coming back because there's just so many characters that you could approve or deny into the country and see what kind of story pans out with them. You get like a newspaper of each day and you see some of the people on those newspapers come into your country or come into your border crossing, and it's a moral dilemma to let them in or not. There's just so much story that it's crazy how small this game is and how much story it packs into it. In the difficulty curve of the game, as the time progresses and more things happen in the country and you have more restrictions and stuff, it really adds a element of fun and difficulty that plays out in the story of the game, which is super interesting. And so in this game, you gain credits or currency by approving or denying people into the country. And so it is like a frantic kind of pace where you want to approve or deny as many people as you can to gain the most money to help your family and stuff. But you also need to be careful because the more citations you get, you won't get paid for it if you get a citation. And after, I think it's 2 citations, you end up having to pay credits for bad conduct or whatever. So you do get this like frantic pace as the game progresses of looking through everything thoroughly, but you want to do it quick enough that you can get as many credits in to the day as you can. And there is some things that you'll get as you progress in that will like give you shortcuts and key bindings that will help you approve or deny people faster, but most of the time it's just a frantic pace of trying to figure everything out as quickly as you can. And I think that's what makes this game so fun, is the gameplay plays into the story, which also plays into the progression, and it's kind of like a loop of everything just progressing larger and larger as the game goes on. And especially for the price that it's at right now, even at its normal price of $10, it is a must-have game for anyone who enjoys games that have good stories and stuff. This is honestly one of the best story-told games that I have ever played. I mean, Lucas Pope is simply a masterclass at telling stories and great games. I wish he had more games out there because each one of his games has been absolutely brilliant. But enough talking about how brilliant this game is. Let's dive into some tips and tricks for the game. Starting out, the hardest thing to remember is the issuing city for each country. There's only 3 issuing cities that people can get passports from in each country, and it's really hard to remember when starting out. So you have to go to your regional map and check out each country to make sure that they have the right issuing city. And the game will definitely throw you some curveballs where you'll notice an issuing city that you've seen before, but it's for a different country, so you have to be aware of that as well. I mean, if you're really just trying to be efficient, you can also just have like a notepad or something pulled up on a side screen or just written down somewhere of each of the issuing cities. That's what I did when I first started out, because it takes a long time to look through each one to make sure that they have the right issuing city for their country. My next tip is to definitely get any sort of booth upgrades that you can. I think it takes like a week of in-game time in order to get your first upgrade, but definitely get them and definitely use them. It makes things go a whole lot quicker. Another thing that can be difficult when starting out is figuring out how to identify a discrepancy. Typically, you'll want to just use your rule book and just have that up on your like pad or whatever, just so you can refer to your rules each day. And typically, there will be new rules to follow at the beginning of each day, and usually the first person that comes to your station will have the elements of that new rule. Another tip I have is that it is definitely more nerve-wracking to let someone into your country than to deny them. Typically, when you deny them, you know what you're denying them for, but when you're approving, you think that you have everything right and in order, but sometimes something gets through and you get a citation, unfortunately. Once you've got like the rules and understanding of what you need to look for in each game, it's definitely best to try and blaze through as many people as possible at the start of the game. Typically that way you'll be able to save up a lot of credits for different upgrades and any sort of medicine and stuff that you need for your family. And you can cut food and heat from your apartment to save some money, but typically that will cause people in your family to get sick. So it's not an ideal way to do it, unless you want to kill your family, which is always an option, I guess. Another thing to note is the moral dilemma in the game. There's obviously some people that you want to let into the country maybe, and you just can't because there's some sort of discrepancy on their passport, but you do have 2 free strikes before you start getting charged. Obviously, if you let someone in that isn't supposed to be, or deny someone that should be let into the country, you won't get paid for that particular person, but you won't get docked pay unless you have 3 strikes. And typically how each day goes, the first person will always have the new rules applied to them, and typically they'll have them all in order. And usually the next person will have the same stuff but sort of discrepancy will be on their passport or whatever. Another thing to note is anytime you get a card for like a strip club, usually that person will be allowed in. So typically anytime I see someone give me one of those cards, I'll just automatically approve them, not really look towards anything, because I would say 99% of the time they are approved anyways. And typically people with some sort of stop story or something will usually have something that won't allow them to get into the country, so it just becomes a moral dilemma at that point. But you can tell usually by the way that they're talking if they are going to be let in or not. For example, if they are talking about how much they hate Astorska and how they don't want to be in this country but are forced to or something, usually they are approved. I would say about, again, like 99% of the time they get approved. Another thing to note is that if you do find a discrepancy, like if they say that they're in transit but their permit says that they're just visiting, and then they correct that mistake, usually you won't find a second mistake. I rarely find any time that there's a second mistake. There is sometimes, but it's very rare. So if they correct their mistake or something like that, I'll usually just approve them. After like about a week of in-game time, you'll get a option to detain people that have suspicious things on their passport or whatnot. And you can get paid credits afterwards, after a couple times of detaining people by the guards that are detaining. But typically it takes longer to detain someone than it does to just deny them into the country, which detaining and denying, it doesn't really matter which you do. And there is multiple different endings to the game. Typically the way to get the multiple endings is to approve or deny those moral dilemmas. In that way you'll unlock different endings to the game if you want to go that route. Another tip I have is once you get in a few days, you'll be able to use a scanner to check for any contraband. When this happens, you will find that that there will be a discrepancy if the person is male or female, and you'll have to use that to check if they are or aren't what they say on their passport. So it can be tricky, but you won't have to worry about that for the first couple of days. Another tip I have is maybe there is some sort of moral dilemma that you had during the day. Typically those story beats will happen on the same day, so you can repeat that day if you wanted to. After each day the game saves, so you're able to go through each day, and if there is something that you wanted to do differently, you can change it by starting like a new save from that day. Another tip I have is most of the things on the passports themselves are key to figuring out if they are approved or denied, but any foreigners, they have a date of birth, but that literally doesn't matter. You never have to see that. The only people that does matter for is for people who are from Astorska, because they have to show their ID as well, and there can be a discrepancy between birthdays on their passport and ID. And really the final tip I have is to make sure that you have your rule book up and ready for each time that you are questioning someone to come in, because there can be discrepancies for stuff, and it's just easy to have your rule book up and ready to interrogate for those discrepancies. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did. Comment any other fantastically fun games for $15 you want me to check out. And I will catch you in the next one. Glory to Astorska. Peace.
that rhythm.